なんでだよ。カイジ！
The third season this time begins with the state of Japan, which at that time was experiencing a severe economic crisis. From industry to food prices soared. It caused the poverty rate to increase and made the low-income population suffer greatly. Plus, the bosses of the company took advantage of the situation to pay low jobs, because they knew that the workers inevitably needed the job. One of the people who also belonged to the low income was Kaiji. In contrast to other workers, Kaiji was more courageous in expressing his protests related to the very low salaries of workers. But what power the system had been determined by the boss, so that if anyone dared to argue, it would be invited to leave the company. As a result, the workers were only resigned to accept the situation. After that, Kaiji, who was resting then, was suddenly visited by a man named Otsuki there. Otsuki immediately expressed his intention to offer cooperation with Kaiji by participating in an event with a large enough prize. The event was called the Tower of Babel. In the event, players will get the opportunity to choose between 1 billion yen in cash or a secret entrance ticket that can change his life. In this game, Kaiji must compete with hundreds of people to get a card that is deliberately hidden by the organizer. Before the game starts, Otsuki also tells the location of the card that Kaiji must get later. So then Kaiji's job is just to get the card faster than other players. And at night, the event finally begins. Hundreds of event participants use all means to get a card that is located on a pole. Then Kaiji also used an anti-mainstream way, namely by walking on an iron beam to approach the top of the pole. Seeing Kaiji's way, the other players quickly acted to block Kaiji. While some participants were busy with Kaiji, some young men there took advantage of the opportunity to climb quickly. As a result, Kaiji, who panicked desperately, jumped from the iron beam to get the card. But unfortunately, it turned out that Kaiji could only touch the card, so that the card fell into the hands of a young man. Fortunately, the event organizers said that the card could only function on the first person to touch it, so it can be concluded that the winner of the event was Kaiji. Meanwhile, Kaiji was given the opportunity to choose between money or admission, and unexpectedly, Kaiji chose admission. The scene then switches to show Tei Land, which is an underground project that Kaiji and other slaves used to work on. The appearance of the underground room has been very different, 180 degrees, where the pitch-black environment has now become one of the largest casinos in Japan. At the same time, several Japanese officials were seen holding a meeting to anticipate the economic problems that occurred. The meeting was opened by someone named Kosuke Takakura. Takakura gave an idea that could save Japan, but unfortunately, the victims of the idea were the low-class people. On the other hand, Kaiji, who previously chose the entrance ticket, then went to a place according to the directions of the organizers. In that place, he also met a woman who also won the same event as Kaiji, the woman named Kirino Kanako. Shortly thereafter, the event organizer came to meet them. So the event organizer was one of the richest people in Japan today, named Togo. At that time, Togo also explained that he really needed people like Kaiji and Kanako who prefer secrets to change lives. where at that time Togo had learned of a plan from the government that was very detrimental to the lower classes of society, because the government is currently planning to produce a new currency and use all the money in the bank to cover the country's current debt. One of the masterminds of the crazy plan is Takakura. That's why here, Tugo needs a partner to help him save people's lives and thwart the plan. By gambling and getting 100 billion, later the 100 billion will be used to bribe the government to oppose Takakura's plan. At first, Kaiji had refused the offer because he did not want to interfere with government affairs. But after he learned that the government was also working with the Tei group, Kaiji finally agreed to the offer. Then Secretary Tugo also introduced two gambling that can make a lot of money quickly. The first gambling is known as the last human punishment. In this gambling, there is a scale for 2 players. Well, the task of players is to collect their wealth in gold to weigh their scales. They can also get help from friends, investors, family, or spectators. At the end of the game, the player whose scales are heavier will be declared the winner. The second gambling is known as Dream Jump. There will be 10 players who will jump from a height. Of the 10 players, there will only be one winner who survives and the rest will die. Well, the 2 gambling that has the biggest prize. After that, Togo's secretary also told Kaiji a secret. Togo used to have a lover. It is known that at that time, Togo had given a very high-value painting to his lover. And the secretary also asked Kaiji to find the painting in order to help Togo in the match later. After that, Kaiji immediately went to look for the woman. At that time, Kaiji also got information that the lover of the Togo had died a long time ago. At the same time like this, he also met Takakura. At that time, Takakura was leading his subordinates to forcibly evict the people who lived on government land. It certainly made Kaiji very angry, but what power for now, he could not do anything. After leaving the place, Kaiji was confronted by a group of teenagers who turned out to be participants from the previous event. There they also asked for prize money from Kaiji because they really needed it to continue the robot factory left by his father. A few days later, the final punishment gambling finally began. In this gambling, Togo will fight someone named Kurosaki. Kurosaki is a businessman who collaborates with the government. Before the game takes place, the organizer also explains some of the rules of the game. In short, the game is a wealth contest in the form of gold, and later the heaviest scales will be the winner. After that, the game began. At the beginning of the gambling, Kurosaki had shown his cheating, starting from inviting rich people to be friends, and his family manipulated the price of goods from the Togo supporters to force the Togo supporters to side with him, until suddenly Togo's secretary also betrayed them. He deliberately asked Kaiji to find the valuable painting so that it could be donated to Kurosaki's side. It happened because the Togo secretary turned out to be the son of Togo's late lover. So who held a grudge against Togo for leaving him and his mother? This certainly made Togo and Kaiji very surprised and disappointed. Unexpectedly, the painting was estimated to be the most valuable treasure that Togo had ever owned and was worth around 10 billion more. But unexpectedly, the painting turned out to be not valuable in terms of money, but valuable because it was a painting made directly by Togo when his lover was pregnant. Togo also revealed how much he loved his lover, but fate said otherwise. His lover apparently died after giving birth to his son, who turned out to be his secretary all this time. Even Togo revealed how he had struggled to find his son until now. This also made Togo's secretary begin to remember her memories with Togo while she was his secretary. Togo was indeed a very good person to her. As a result, the secretary began to regret her actions and sided with her father. In the middle of the game, the organizer also asked Togo and Kurosaki to see the results of their temporary wealth scales, and the results showed that Kurosaki's scales were much heavier than Togo. Fortunately, before the gambling, Kaiji had asked for 1 billion as an emergency fund for conditions like this. So like this, he used the 1 billion to get more money. Kaiji, Kaneko, and the secretary also took the money to the gambling place. But suddenly, all the gambling places were closed except for the Dream Jump gambling. So, inevitably, Kaiji was forced to play the gambling. Before going to the gambling arena, Kaiji suddenly met Endo. At that time, Endo also helped Kaiji by telling him how to win the game. The key is that Kaiji and his friends must work together to sabotage and find out the winning number from the previous Dream Jump gambling. As a result, Kaiji, Kaneko, and the secretary divided their respective tasks. Then Kaiji immediately went to the gambling arena and prepared to jump. But before that, he had to wait for the secretary and Kaneko to complete their respective tasks. With good cooperation, Kaiji managed to survive the game and get his prize. Without waiting for a long time, the three of them immediately returned to the gambling arena before the time was up. But unfortunately, when they got there, Kurosaki said to Kaiji that he was late. Even that made Togo faint immediately. But Kaiji calmly said that he had manipulated the clock there with the help of his former workmates, so that the time there runs 5 minutes faster than the actual time, because Togo is no longer able to participate in gambling. As a result, Kaiji came forward to replace him, with the help of fellow teenage robot makers. To the help of Kotaro, Kaiji finally managed to turn things around. Even 1 coin from the previous painting exchange managed to make Kaiji superior to Kurosaki. From that gambling, Kaiji also got a prize of 100 billion, while Kurosaki had to end up being a slave. After that, Kaiji and the others went to see Takakura to stop the bank blocking. Unexpectedly, Kaiji turned out to have taken hostage the governments who were currently trapped in a room that they would previously make as a place for distributing new money. Now, if Takakura wants to free the governments, then he must win gambling against Kaiji. The gambling they will play this time is rock, paper, scissors. But from the game this time, the players are asked to carry an iron ball in their hands. Unexpectedly, it turns out that this game is the expertise of Takakura. Even until now, he has never lost to anyone. And sure enough, at the beginning of the round, Kaiji also lost. But in the last round, Kaiji also turned things around and won the game. Unexpectedly, Kaiji actually already knew the secret of the game, so he deliberately turned things around in the last round. Even though at this time Takakura lost, but he still did not want to fulfill his promise to Kaiji. Unexpectedly, all of that turned out to be a plan from Kaiji and Togo. So the 100 billion money earned by Kaiji from the previous gambling was used to reveal all the crimes of the government. The next day, Takakura returned to see Kaiji. There, Kaiji explained, that from the beginning he had arranged a careful plan to defeat the government. And that's when the television broadcasts the crimes committed by the government behind the people. And all of that is also part of Kaiji and Togo's plan. As a result, the bank's blocking was lifted and the release of the new currency was officially canceled. The film ended with the distribution of money to Kaiji and others from their winnings. At that time, Kaiji immediately used the money to eat well. Unexpectedly, this time, Kaiji was deceived again. How not the contents of the cover turned out to be not money, but several bottles of mineral water. And the person who had deceived Kaiji this time turned out to be Endo, who in the previous meeting, Endo asked for a share for him if Kaiji won because of his help. So Endo worked with Kanako to get his share, and the movie was over. Poor Kaiji, at the end of the season, he was deceived for the umpteenth time. Thank you for watching until we see you in the next storyline.